Ace Frehley, Kiss's famous spaceman, passed away at the age of 74. However, the subsequent statements made by Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley stunned fans much more than the death itself. The world's perception of Kiss was altered by their admissions. Why did Ace get called irreplaceable by the two individuals who once threw him off the stage? You will hear every startling revelation, every moment that paved the way for a pivotal moment, and every relationship that goes unnoticed in this film. Ace died in Morristown Medical Center in New Jersey on October 16, 2025, at the age of 74. Following a fall at a recording studio close to his home, his family verified that consequences from a traumatic brain injury were the cause of death. His passing marked the end of a musical career spanning over 50 years and the beginning of the next phase of one of the most recognizable guitarists in rock history. Medical reports state that the accident happened on the evening of September 25. Ace stumbled and collapsed in his private recording studio, slamming his head into a recording gear. He suffered an intracranial hemorrhage and went into a coma after being taken to the emergency hospital. He suffered a significant cerebral hemorrhage, according to the doctors, and urgent surgery was necessary to relieve the pressure. Ace temporarily regained consciousness following the procedure, but the spreading complications caused him to rapidly relapse into a coma. His daughter Monique and ex-wife Jeanette Traratola were among his family members who showed up at the hospital almost away. They alternated between remaining at his bedside for 3 weeks while they awaited his recovery. According to medical reports, Ace was kept alive using life support technology and placed on a ventilator. However, his neurological reaction did not improve while in critical care. The primary treating physician confirmed on October 10 that there was virtually no chance of recovery. Ace was physically active but had previously struggled with health issues brought on by drugs and alcohol. However, he has been performing frequently and leading a reasonable life in recent years. Prior to his collapse, he had just wrapped up his final performance in early September, which concluded the tour and promoted the 10,000 Volts album. He was characterized by his teammates as happy, productive, and discussing plans to record 2 new songs. Nobody anticipated that he would end up in the hospital a few weeks later. The management team formally declared the termination of the remaining trip on October 4. Ace's spokesperson said in a social media post that the doctor had prescribed long-term rest for Ace. False reports regarding his health status surfaced at the same time, prompting the family to release a statement requesting privacy. Ace's last word before passing away confirmed that he is still battling hard, getting good care, and that his family always loves him. Despite spending over 3 weeks in the hospital, no improvement has been made by any medical intervention. The doctor advised the family to think about taking the ventilator out on October 15. The following morning, the decision was taken following a meeting behind closed doors. 8:17 a.m. Ace's breathing ended on October 16. According to the official report, head trauma-related cerebral hemorrhage complications were the cause of death. The following day, the family issued a statement in which they said, "We are heartbroken and devastated." He was surrounded by warm comments and love prayers in his last moments. "We treasure all of the wonderful memories and generosity he showed to everyone. His demise represents an unfathomably enormous loss." Ace's final exchange during an interview earlier this year is one particular that has been brought up a lot. He chuckled when asked about his health and claimed that a clairvoyant had predicted that he would live to be 100 years old. The comments were interpreted as a sign of hope after his passing, expressing his personality as it really is: fearless, witty, and persistent. Professionally speaking, Ace still has a lot of unresolved plans. He had stated that he would work with 2 up-and-coming musicians he had coached and that his next album would be released in 2026. His home computer still has the rough recordings from that endeavor. Although they haven't disclosed a certain timing, his representatives stated that they are trying to set up a release in accordance with his desires. Many people have realized that Kiss, a band that was previously thought to be eternal, has effectively finished its cycle since Ace's passing. The first person to die from the initial lineup was Ace. He was the epitome of musical improvisation for 50 years, full of personality and adventure. His passing signifies the end of a chapter in the group's history. Paul and Gene were among the first to make official remarks upon the confirmation of Ace's death. They talked about him this time in a way that had not been heard in years. Statements in silence. Paul referred to Ace as an essential member of the original chapter of the band, irreplaceable and ever-present in Kiss history. In an official statement, Paul used the phrase irreplaceable for Ace for the first time. He had already stressed in numerous interviews that kissing is a concept that transcends people. Ace's permanent departure from the music industry was evident in the tone change. Gene's word choice was straightforward but unambiguous. Ace performed something that no one could have done. We didn't deny it. And nobody is left to say it out loud. Following a press-free private memorial service, the message was captured on a brief tape. However, the band's media department reposted it. The material was obvious, but Gene's demeanor was more composed. The two did not go on television or organize a news conference to discuss their feelings. However, the announcement they made was sufficient to terminate their distancing from ACE after 2002. ACE was not invited to perform with the band and was not mentioned on tours for many years. And new members frequently took his place. That changed after Ace died. "We are completely devastated by Ace's passing," was the opening line of the joint statement that was made public. Second, throughout the early years of the band's inception, he was an indispensable rock warrior. This was a condition-free affirmation that didn't examine the reasons behind the split, discuss disagreements, or defend earlier choices. They decided to confront Ace's involvement head-on, even if it meant re-evaluating their collaboration with him. Although Paul and Gene's monument was dispersed among all Kiss platforms, there was no public memorial. Ace's 1977 Spaceman avatar was used on the group's official social media profiles. For the first time since 2002, that is. That for years, the image had been revived without Tommy Ace's replacement. A few short memories were given beneath the statements. Paul's account of his first encounter with Ace at an audition in 1973 was one of them. "I watched a man enter wearing a leather jacket and mismatched shoes. I hoped he would be the next member, but I had no idea who he was. He was Ace, too." Past riffs were not mentioned. Or public apologies, but the words they use, the images they include, and the moment they remain silent all imply that Paul and Gene have changed Ace's image from that of a former member to one that is essential to the group's history. Ace's return to the spotlight in Kiss media is viewed as a blatant act of healing. Ace's image had previously hardly been used in the group's films or reissues. All digital disc covers, ticketing platforms, and homepage designs were black with the sole phrase "Forever Spaceman" after October 16. Paul and Gene asked that the entire library be updated to include ACE's early performances as a priority in the video catalog, according to certain Kiss technical team members. This went into effect within 72 hours of ACE's passing, but it was not disclosed. Paul said, "I expect everything related to ACE to be treated with absolute respect," in internal documents that were distributed throughout the production team. No replacements, no cuts, and no blurring. Alongside this, there was another request. "Shock Me with ACE's Guitar," the original live tune, will be made available again on digital music platforms. However, ACE, Paul, and Gene's friendship deteriorated gradually and without warning. It was distinctly shaped by every phase, choice, and public declaration. Additionally, in contrast to many other bands, Kiss's internal disputes were always verified by the insiders. The band ACE in 1973. He was the candidate who initially stood out throughout the screening process due to his distinct personal style as well as his skill as a guitarist. He was responsible for the creation of the image of Spaceman, one of Kiss's 4 core characters. The band soon became associated with that appearance and their unique guitar sound. Ace was a vital component of the band's overall sound from the very first record. His unique style was evident in songs like Rocket Ride, Shock Me, and Cold Gin. However, tensions between him and the other 2 members started to emerge behind the scenes. The band's operations were always led by Paul and Gene. Ace has consistently believed that he was left out of any significant decision-making. He stated in an interview that when everything is settled before I enter the room, there is nothing I can do. This was not only his sentiment, it was also a part of Kiss's past, in which the 2 executives have always been crucial. Kiss concurrently released 4 solo albums in 1978, one for each member. The only album to have significant commercial success was Ace's. At a period when Paul and Gene had previously received all the attention, he gained notoriety thanks to the smash song New York Groove. The relationship became even more delicate as a result. Beginning in the late 1970s, Ace stopped participating in a lot of group decisions. He became addicted to drugs and booze. Ace was frequently late and even forgot his set, according to Paul's book Behind the Mask. Ace's judgment was always impacted, according to Gene, and that hasn't altered in years. Since they were made official, these claims have remained unaltered. Ace quit Kiss in 1982 as a result of the album Music from the Elders' commercial failure. Insiders knew that Ace felt excluded from the operating system, despite his assertion that it was for personal reasons. Following that, Kiss carried on with substitute members. Ace, however, consistently maintained that Kiss lost its unique identity at that point. Ace went alone with Frehley's comment after that. He kept performing and putting out records, although he frequently brought up the previous disputes. Ace said, "They don't want me to succeed," in a social media post. "They do everything they can to make me look like I can't be trusted." These words were not disputed by Paul or Gene. In 1996, Ace returned to Kiss for a reunion tour. It was the first time the group had performed with the original lineup in years. The tour was a record-breaking success, but behind the scenes, the old problems reappeared. Paul and Gene enforced stricter discipline, image control, revenue sharing, and health checks than ever before. This made Ace feel under surveillance. In a behind-the-scenes recording, he said, "I'm not a soldier and I didn't sign a contract to be watched every day." In 2002, after the last tour with all 4 founding members, Ace left the group. The main reason he gave was that he no longer trusted the manager. Meanwhile, Paul claimed that Ace wasn't committed enough. Gene said that Ace left the tour because he couldn't handle the pressure. From then on, the 3 of them didn't appear on stage together. In the following years, the conflict turned to another direction: ownership of the image and symbol. Paul and Gene continued to use the spaceman character for shows, but let a new member take over. Ace didn't accept this. He once said, "I created the character. They can't put a new face on something that is associated with me." The incident turned their relationship from a personal tension to a legal and trademark conflict. In 2014, Kiss was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Ace did not perform with the group. "I don't have to stand next to someone who called me useless to get a title I deserve," he declared at a press conference. Paul did not respond to the statement. Gene said, "We respect what he has contributed, but we also have the right to move on." In the years since Ace has refused all offers to reunite, he claims the terms are unclear and coercive. When asked about the possibility of sharing the stage with the group one last time, Ace replied, "It's not because I don't want to, it's because I can't accept the way they treat me like an outsider." Paul and Gene have never directly apologized to Ace in any interviews, but in recent statements, both have mentioned missing out on moments that should have been. A podcast recording that went viral in early 2024 has Paul saying, "I don't know if it's worth holding on to something that's been unpleasant for so long." This is one of the rare times he doesn't deny the role of personal conflict within the group. For nearly 50 years, Ace has been the one who stuck together, but also the one who was left out of the center. The relationship between him and the other 2 was not hidden. It was always present in every sentence, every decision, every refusal to shake hands. And it was these things that made it clear why their separation was irreversible. Underneath it all, there was one thing that never changed. Who laid the foundation for Kiss's identity in the first place? It wasn't about contract sales or positions. It was about the roots, where it all began, and that part none other than Ace. Origins never replaced. Ace was the last person to be selected for the original Kiss lineup. His 1973 audition brought him into the band not just because of his guitar skills, but because of something no one else had. He was unlike anyone else before him. He didn't copy anyone. He didn't follow a formula. He came and plugged in the amp and played like it was his own thing. Paul once recalled that moment: "I looked down from the railing and thought, I wish that person was in the band." It was Ace. Soon after he was cast, Ace developed the character of Spaceman, the alien with the guitar. This was an integral part of the early image of Kiss. Although Paul and Gene often changed the direction of the group, Ace always kept his own style. He was quiet. He didn't participate in management. But he was the one who helped the band maintain its identity in live performances. The recordings that clearly bear Ace's fingerprints are often on the songs considered different in the Kiss discography. Shock Me Strange Ways, Hard Times, all of which he wrote and performed himself. They were unlike the rest. They felt raw, unedited, flawed, but real. When he sang, Ace wasn't trying to prove anything, he sang as if music were the only thing in the room. Ace's influence didn't stop with his recordings. Many famous guitarists credit him with being the reason they started playing. From Mike McCready, to Tom Morello, to John Five. All of them credit Ace with their roots. Not because of his technique, but because of his free-spirited performance. He didn't need to be in the right place on stage. Didn't need to be on beat. Didn't need to follow a set schedule. Everything happened the way he wanted it to. Paul and Gene always ran Kiss as a long-term project. They focused on management, finances, and image. Ace was the opposite. He didn't plan things, didn't keep a tight schedule, wasn't always on time. This earned him complaints, even being called troublemaker. But while the band became more and more of a commercial machine, Ace remained the last link between music and artistic freedom. When Ace left the band, he didn't take his contract with him. He brought the style. And for more than 20 years, it has been the same. On stage, or in the studio. His solo records from Frehley's Comet to 10,000 Volts were unfashionable. They retained the spirit of a man who had nothing to prove to anyone. Paul and Gene could recreate the spaceman image by hiring someone else to dress like Ace. But they couldn't recreate the sound. They couldn't recreate the spontaneous, unplanned, unscripted feel. That's the difference. For years, the group continued without Ace. They performed released material, expanded the brand into all sorts of areas. But the early Kiss live recordings, the ones with Ace, are still the most watched. Fans old and new go back to those days. Not for the sound, but for the energy that was unmatched. Ace's legacy is not just in the records. It's in the image that has been associated with the youth of many generations. Anyone who picked up a guitar for the first time because they saw a man in a silver suit standing under purple and blue lights all have a part of their memory named Ace. Not everyone keeps it, but almost everyone has it. With what has just been mentioned, the story of Ace is not just the journey of an artist leaving the stage, but also the end of an unrepeatable part of Kiss's history. If you've ever heard an Ace riff and found yourself wanting to pick up a guitar for the first time, or if you've ever watched them reunite and then fall apart, leave a comment below to share your feelings about this special character. Don't forget to like if you found this video valuable, share it with your former Kiss fans, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the most honest and complete musical stories. Thank you for watching until the end.